Welcome to the Windows Essential Podcast, episode 62 for August 25th, 2017. Hey everyone, Deanna Rubino here, joined again by Zach Bowden, or with Zach Bowden, I should say. It's been one of those weeks. This week we'll be talking about new Windows 10 builds on the Insider Ring, specifically fast, whether it's good, what's new, because there are actually a couple little cool things there as well. We'll talk about Xbox One X, which had a rather large week at Gamescom as pre-sales hit the streets and evidently are doing very well. I'll also talk about my new Razer Blade Stealth review. So one of the more popular Ultrabooks on the market, especially for people who are Mac users who are looking to jump into the Windows 10 world. I'll talk about the brand new edition and what's cool about it and maybe what's not so cool. We'll also talk about precision touchpads. Why? Well, if you were listening to this live right now, the story has not got up yet, but we're about to publish a guide on how to convert your trackpad to a Microsoft Precision one. And it works phenomenally. We're all excited about this because Zach and I have like HP Spectre laptops that we dearly love, except for the trackpad. And now it's fixed. So we're going to talk about that experience. And you can follow our guide, which may go live today on Friday, or if not, Saturday. And then I'm going to publish the hell out of it because it's so important. If you're new to this podcast, we are a Microsoft Windows focused podcast where we talk about all things in the Windows 10 world, HoloLens, Surface, new apps, Xbox, and all that cool jazz. So thanks for tuning in. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. How are you?
Well, I'm definitely glad it's a Friday. It is the UFC, well, I should say McGregor-Mayweather fight tomorrow night, which I kind of can't wait till it's over just because I'm tired of reading about it. I still have not bought it either because it's a $100 pay-per-view, which is stupid. It's like twice as much as normal. I don't know how that fight's going to go, but that may or may not be my weekend coming up. So anyway, let's jump into this new Windows 10 build. We are coming up fast on the Fall Creators Update. We are in the final stretch right now. So what they are doing is bug testing and fixing things, but they're also tossing in a couple of little things that we haven't seen before. So why don't you tell us what's actually new?
So yes, this week we had a new build for PC only. There was no mobile love this week, unfortunately, although we're not really missing out on much on mobile anymore. So build 16273, not a lot new in the build because we're at that point in development where Microsoft are just focused on making it so the operating system itself is stable enough for public release. But the new thing in this build is a new font. Barnshrift, I believe is how it's pronounced, is a new open type variable font, which is now included in Windows. It's not being used by default in the system, but it's in there now, so it is supported by the OS, which is really nice. And then apart from that, it's literally all improvements. Shell improvements, Edge improvements, input improvements, and just general changes and fixes that they've added through the build. So even though we haven't had a build for 2 weeks or so, there's not much new in this build. Microsoft does say that starting probably next week, the skip ahead ring will start seeing different builds released at a different pace from the Redstone 3 ring, and that's because Microsoft are now ready to start testing real Redstone 4 builds. Internally, they've made the jump. They did jump to build 17,000 at, I believe, the beginning of the week, I think it might have been the beginning of the week, and that didn't work out. Turns out the build system or Windows itself didn't like build 17,000 and there were a lot of issues. So they went back to build 16,350 for now. They will likely jump forwards again if they can fix the 17,000 range, which I'm sure they will at some point because they're going to have to get there at some point eventually. So I'm not entirely sure if Insiders will be getting a build from the 16,350 range next week or the 17,000 range. It's either one at this point. But yes, Redstone 3 and Skip Ahead will now be using separate builds from here on out, starting next week. And right now, Microsoft says that the skip ahead ring won't start seeing any new features just yet because, as with development goes, the beginning bit of development doesn't really see much change. It's usually the middle part, which is the most meatiest. But Redstone 4 skip ahead rings will start getting a lot more buggy starting next week and heading into the rest of the year. So exciting time to be a Redstone 4 insider. A little bit less exciting if you're a Redstone 3 insider, and that's simply because Microsoft are now trying to finalize the OS, which I am hearing will be done mid-September for release in October, I believe. Yes, so maybe a late September, early October is what I'm hearing for release. And of course, Microsoft will do their usual, we're going to roll it out in waves, first to Surface devices, then to third-party selected list, whatever, and then they'll just eventually roll out to everyone like they have done with previous releases. So yeah, pretty exciting time for Windows indeed. I like this part of development really because it's like the switchover period. Microsoft are planning, actually, yeah, they've planned pretty much most of what they're going to do with Redstone 4. Now it's up to them to actually commit to that without delaying things like Microsoft like to do these days. But yeah, so very exciting times.
I'm just excited because hopefully things finally getting more stable. I actually have a bug Zach and I were talking about before this podcast that I'm curious if others are experiencing it, but I run a multi-display setup. So when I have Edge, if I pull out a tab and put it on one display and have my other tab on another display so I can kind of multitask, closing out one closes out all my instances of Edge, which is totally infuriating. And it hasn't gone away with this latest build. I don't know. I guess I should do diligence here and file some feedback, but it's always one of those things. It's tougher for me because I do this job, obviously, so, 20 hours a day, it feels like that. It feels like extra homework for me. It's like extra credit to file bugs with Microsoft, where our people in our audience, hopefully have more free time. But yeah, overall, kind of interesting stuff. The font thing is definitely sort of interesting. Some feedback on that as well. Overall, though, I don't know. This update, it's okay. I don't know how I feel about the new Action Center and the way the cards look. I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
A lot of the UI in version 3 is very unfinished. Microsoft did originally have planned a lot more fluent design elements in the OS with version 3, but of course they've pushed back a lot of that. They've even removed some of the hover effects. I can't remember what they call it. Reveal effect, maybe?
Reveal highlight.
Reveal highlight. They removed, because they added it in one of the insider builds and it was showing up in a lot more places in the system, but then they removed it in a later build and it's not returned yet. So as I pointed out in my build video for 16.2.7.3, Microsoft's reveal effect in the OS is very, very inconsistent. For example, if you open up Cortana and open up the hamburger menu, it's got the reveal effects, it's got the fluent design stuff there, it looks really nice. But if you open up the start menu, that hamburger menu, it doesn't have it. It's not there at all. And you would think that it would because they're supposed to sort of be the same sort of part of the same thing. For example, the notifications area, the actual notifications doesn't have the reveal effect in it. But the quick actions, if you look very close, it's very hard to see. But if you look closely, it has it there. In settings, it's in some areas, but not in others. It's just, and same in My People, it's really messy right now. And I am told Redstone 4 will fix most of this. But again, this is Microsoft we're talking about. And whether they can commit to that plan is another story. So fingers crossed for Redstone 4 actually fixing a lot of this UI inconsistency and improving upon the design. Because I still think right now the Windows 10 design is not great compared to, say, Mac OS or other mobile platforms.
Yeah, I have to kind of agree. Like I said, the new Action Center, like I don't know, I feel like I'm seeing less information. Maybe it's just because I get so many notifications, but I don't know. I like I said, I don't hate it, but when I look at it, I'm not like, oh, it's just so pretty. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely Windows 10. I wouldn't call pretty right now. I mean, the concepts that they've released for Windows 10 looks very pretty, but again, concepts are simply that, concepts. They aren't working code. In most cases, they aren't working code, and a lot of the concepts that Microsoft had shown off at Build on Stage weren't actual things that they had worked on. They showed off a couple of working code stuff in the breakout sessions that they did later. But even that, like the start menu reveal effects, they showed that off. Apparently, that was working code. Where is it? It's not here. Same goes in things like the Mail app and whatever else. It's still not here yet. And I mean, apps can be updated separately. That's not really an issue. They can arrive whenever they need to. The APIs are all there at this point, or mostly should be there. But the system is where I'm talking about. Like in the start menu, for example, the taskbar, window controls, some window controls. It's not there. And that's the problem that I'm having with Windows 10 Redstone 3. I just think it's just too inconsistent.
Yeah, the reveal highlight stuff I think actually looks really nice though when it's implemented.
Right.
It seems like it's almost got a little bit stronger in the sense that it almost looks like when you put the cursor over an object, it gives that real like bright effect, which is supposed to simulate what it's like using HoloLens when you're using the select method there. So yeah, it's kind of funny. They create more work so they continue on in RS4 and RS5. And then they'll create a new problem that needs to be solved and expanded upon. Of course, by that point, we'll hopefully have a new Surface phone that we can be talking about.
I am not confident that they're going to be able to release the Surface Phone in the first half of 2018. I will be blown away if they do. I would, at the earliest, I would expect late 2018 for a Surface Phone. But
well, if it does get pushed back, and of course, we have to, as it gets to that touchy subject, like, well, we never announced anything, so it can't technically be delayed.
No, I know.
I hate that argument because they clearly do have internal timelines that they try to achieve. There, I mean, they don't just get up every morning and like, what are we working today? But if it does get pushed back or goes later than expected, it's going to be OS related, right?
Oh, yeah.
It won't be. The hardware will probably be done or kind of completed.
It will be Windows' fault.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Complicated stuff. It's that's what makes the Insider program, I guess, pretty fun. I'm still curious in 5 years, assuming there's still a world around, where we'll be talking about Windows development. Like, is it going to be the same rate? The same pace of development and features, and just like what will have changed at that point. Of course, hopefully by then, Zach's theory of embedded Windows into our eyeballs for mixed reality will be a thing. So we'll be talking about that, recovering from our surgery. Be on, was it season 8 or 9 of Black Mirror? We're talking about new stuff. So anyway, that's
since we're talking about new software, let's quickly talk about the new Skype app that Microsoft released for legacy versions of Windows. This is such a ridiculous thing. Microsoft are now previewing a new version of the Skype desktop client, but it's not for Windows 10, because I know lots of Windows 10 users like the Skype desktop version of Windows, and by all means they continue to use it, and that's perfectly fine. But Microsoft have released a new Skype desktop preview for Windows 7 when Windows 8 users. It doesn't work on Windows 10. Well, it's blocked on Windows 10. You can get it to run if you do like a
I'm
trick.
using it right now.
Right. But by default, Microsoft says, nope, Windows 10 users can't use this version. You have to use Skype UWP, which I think is a joke because, as everybody knows, I hate the Skype UWP app with a passion. It's the worst version of Skype of all the platforms on desktop, on iOS and Android, even the new updates on iOS and Android. Skype UWP is way worse. And I honestly, God, when they announced the desk, because it's got a new UI, it looks more like the
it's just like the Android and iOS
it's got the new refresh and stuff. It's got some new features as well. It's
got new rings to it.
It's got new rings. It's a really nice desktop app. But when they announced it, it looked like an update to the Skype UWP app. And I was so excited. I was like, yes, they're finally updating Skype UWP. It's going to be good. And it turns out, no. It's Skype UWP still rubbish. Meanwhile, Skype desktop is looking good and feeling good. And it annoys me.
More importantly, or at least I would say, not importantly, but at least interestingly, this uses the same language that the Slack app is written in, which now Electron, there we go. I was going to say entropy. That's what it feels like. So Electron, if you guys don't know, is a JavaScript type language. It's pretty popular. It's one of the new, I don't want to say fads, but it's definitely in terms of development and programming, it's one of the more interesting ones. If you use Slack, that's written in Electron, which is why, and then why this is interesting is because Electron is actually supported through Project Centennial so that it could be brought to the store. So there are now Electron apps in the store. I only know of Slack, but there's a few others, I believe, that are out there as well. This new Skype app is written like that too, which is interesting because in theory, they could bring this to the store, I think. There's a lot of API considerations to consider. But in theory, this could be brought to the store because maybe a Windows 10s machine could run it. So I'm really wondering if, I don't know, is the UWP version kind of needs to exist right now for mobile, right? That's kind of like, I don't want to say it's the only reason why it's there, but that's definitely an important reason why it's there. And Microsoft is going to support Windows 10 Mobile for at least the next year and a half. And so that version needs to exist. But in theory, they could take this version, put it in the store, and just Windows 10 users on PC could use this. And I'm using it right now. I actually really like it. I think I like the little graphics. I like the new ringers. I think it looks kind of nice. If you're using an iOS and Android version, it's very familiar. So I'm curious what their plans are. Now, for those who are going, why doesn't... I always love this argument. It's like, Microsoft doesn't believe in UWP. They don't use it in their own apps. And of course, they do. But UWP, and I wrote this article last week, is a work in progress. And you can't recreate all Win32's abilities in UWP within 2 years. If it was that easy, they would always be reinventing new languages for apps and games, but they don't do that. So what they're doing is, like, there are literally thousands of APIs out there. APIs are the calls and stuff like that developers use for certain functions. They all need to be put into UWP. And what they do is, of course, Microsoft has a list, and these are like the top ones we need to do. Here are the next important lists. So the reason why you don't see Microsoft doing all its apps in UWP is the same reason why you see a lot of companies not doing all their apps in UWP, is technically it can't be done yet. So as UWP gets bigger and stronger and these new APIs come online, you can do new functions. The reason I bring this up is because I'm curious, are there limitations to Skype right now in the UWP with APIs that the Skype team simply can't do all the same code sharing and feature sets in UWP as on these other platforms? And that's a solvable problem that will be solved over the next couple of years, but I don't know. That's why I'm kind of wondering if maybe we're starting to see this. Like, why not bring this over to the store and just make this the regular default Skype app for Windows 10?
I feel like that would paint a bad picture for the Universal Apps platform, which is when people argue UWP, they're actually referring to true Universal Apps that run across multiple platforms. And that is something that Microsoft were pushing. I mean, I don't really hear them talk about it anymore. Like, remember back in Build 2015, it was like, here, you can build this app and it runs across everything. But now they don't really talk about that anymore. It's like...
Well, part of it is because everything at the time included mobile, which was like a third, right? And now it's like 0%.
Right, but we already know that Microsoft
and also Xbox. Of course, you also need UWP for Xbox.
And we already know at this point that Microsoft doesn't want to leave the mobile market, because that's just a bad idea. Obviously, mobile is the future. Windows needs to be around in some form, which is why we assume they're working on what we're calling a Surface phone. Perhaps we assume that the Surface phone will be able to run Win32 programs, but that would be via emulation. I don't think it's a great idea to rely heavily on emulated apps for a product. I mean, I feel Microsoft definitely needs to continue pushing the universal aspect of UWP, in the sense that developers should be building from the ground up truly universal apps that run across all of the devices and just natively run, because they're more lightweight. That they're great for mobile based devices, not just phones, like small tablets or even laptops. UWP true universal apps are way better than the old clunky Win32 stuff that we're still trying to hang on to. So if Microsoft were to put this Skype app into the store, I feel like that would paint a mixed picture for the future of the universal side of UWP.
I mean, that's not wrong. I would also say, though, they've kind of done that already, right? We're kind of seeing it. We're seeing it with Office, right?
You're right.
So I mean, there are some. I don't think they really care.
Perhaps Microsoft, I don't think this is in the store yet, but perhaps in the future Microsoft are working on an update for the store, and this is purely speculation, that could make it so different types of an app can be listed in the same product page or app listing, and depending on your device, it downloads a different version. So if you're running a desktop with a Core i7 67 or 7700K,
well, we kind of do see that though, right? If you go to, say, Slack, to store listing, if you go to it on PC, it installs the Electron app. But if you go to it on phone, it installs.
It's a different listing on phone.
Is it?
Yeah. It's a different listing. But I mean, what they could do is they could merge those. So it's the same listing, but it's contextual based on the device you're using. So if you are using a sort of mobile-centric device, it goes, hey, you're using a phone. You're likely going to want the phone version, the UWP version, or the old Silverlight version. And then it can see you're running a laptop or a desktop and goes, you clearly want the UWP version. The Win32 version, because that makes more sense on your device. Perhaps they're heading for that sort of idea, which would make more sense. I would be more happy with that than them simply just sort of replacing Skype UWP with Win32 and just saying, oh, the UWP is for mobile only, and then everyone's left with, on desktop, is left with, desktop apps still. I mean, Microsoft is in such an odd position with Win32, UWP, and all that. It's like they were trying to shake off Win32, like, we really want to leave this, it's old and clunky, and now they're kind of in the middle of not wanting to do that, but at the same time they need to. As
I wrote last week in my UWP article, which if you haven't read, please go read it. I think it's very good. But as I point out, Microsoft's only goal, their only concern, is to get apps in the store. They don't care how it gets there. They don't care what language it's built on. And what they're doing with all these bridges and tools is to give developers the ability to get their apps in the store by any means necessary. Once it's in the store, like they honestly, I feel like they want UWP to succeed, but they also know UWP is still in its early stages and it just can't do all the things that, I mean, people have always said this, right? UWP apps, especially like a year ago, they're like, oh, they're crap compared to the desktop versions. They're just stripped down like phone apps, which was kind of true. I mean, that was sort of the original UWP was phone apps for your PC, but that was a weird kind of thing. But as UWP gets stronger, we can see these more features coming online. But that's why I like Centennial, because the desktop bridge, because it does allow devs to get their stuff into the store. I love, Zach and I talk about this all the time. I love having apps that can just, when I go to the store and I hit check for updates, it pulls in all my app updates, right? I don't like having to go to the company's website or running some app in my taskbar that checks randomly. Like, I just don't like that. So Microsoft only cares, and that's why their definition of UWP technically is anything in the store. And that's sort of what I think they're trying to do here. They're just like, let's just get the store going, just put stuff in there. The user doesn't know. Like, our audience cares. Oh, is it really a native UWP? No, it's Centennial. No, it's Electron. Like, that's cool, but like as a customer, you just, hey, I go to store, Slack. Oh, cool, Slack, install. Adobe Elements. Oh, cool, Adobe Elements, install. Spotify. Oh, sweet, Spotify, install. They're not asking themselves, about the way it looks or, what's its base. And so that's how I think Microsoft approaches it. But it's a complicated problem.
I'm definitely in the boat of if there's an app out there, whether it's Win32 or not, and it's not in the store, please be in the store. It's so much more convenient for me and for many other people. I know there's some power users out there going, oh, I prefer using the installer version that just I can go into the program files and manually edit all the DLLs. Fine, you can still have that. I'm sure they're not going to get rid of that anytime soon. But I just want the app in the store because I just want to press one button and have everything solved for me.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
And as I mentioned in that article too, like desktop apps through the store get things like Cortana in-app purchases. Devs get ad network support as well. Of course, there are the updates. There is the action and notification center abilities. There's live tiles. So there's actually these are really considered to be hybrid apps. That's the true way to think about
this. And I was actually going to touch on that. The hybrid side, perhaps Microsoft's plan here is to just get apps in the store, whether it's Win32 or not, and then over time say, right, so they're going to introduce more benefits for true universal apps. And as we learned at Build earlier this year, they can be things as hybrid UWPs, which are Win32 with UWP API elements implemented. And over time, a developer can slowly transform and build their app into a true universal app from Win32 or from desktop, whatever you want to call it. So perhaps when Microsoft starts introducing more incentives to build true universal apps, that's when developers will take another look at their app in the store and go, maybe it is a good idea to start working on that.
Yeah. I mean, Slack is like an app like this. I mean, it's Electron based, but still it's the same thing. It's like technically the same. If you run the version, the installer from Slack's website, and you compare it to the version from the store, they're exactly the same. But you get notifications, you get live tile. Like it's weird because it acts like a UWP, but it doesn't look like one. And that's a cool thing. Like, I love having that ability, right? That's you want a Win32 app to be able to plug into the Windows 10 feature set, and that's kind of what those UWP APIs allow it to do, which is why I think Centennial Desktop Bridge is super important. But someone else pointed out comments about like they're tired of the always work in progress thing. And I mentioned this before. That's not really a fair complaint because technically Windows for 20 years was always a work in progress. You just didn't know about it. That was the difference. Now they lifted up the curtain. You're like, hey, here's how the sausage is made. So you get to follow the development process of this stuff. You get to now get app updates that are sometimes A/B testing that have new features that aren't rolled out to everybody. Like, you're a part of that process. So it's always been a work in progress. You're just seeing it now for the first time. So it's not a legit complaint. Also, if you compare it, like, people talk about that with UWP, like, oh, that's a stupid excuse that it takes a long time for them to make it strong. It's like, yeah, but when iOS, came out with the first iPhone, right? It didn't even run apps. Like that, it's equivalent to going, how come iOS 11 just didn't come out in 2007? Wouldn't that have been easier? We could just have all those apps today and then, like, Right, but there's a reason why there's iOS 8, iOS 9, iOS 10. Like,
I mean,
those are, yeah, they're bringing new features online, but they're also bringing on new tools for developers to enable things to happen. Like, you can't, it's taken 10 years for Apple to get to iOS 11. Like, they couldn't have done that in 1 year. That's not how this stuff works.
The reason people have this sort of feeling towards Windows and the App Store and whatever on Microsoft's App Store is because Microsoft is playing catch up pretty much. Like,
yeah,
I know iOS and Android didn't have apps. In fact, it took a while for them to build what they have today. But at the time when they were building all that, Windows was twiddling its thumbs with Windows 7.
Yeah,
but it's Microsoft's fault that they are so far behind now, which is why people have the expectation that there should all be all these apps in here, and it's for them not to have an app store that's as high quality and as feature filled as the iOS App Store or the Android App Store. It's kind of embarrassing if we're honest. The Windows 10 was a big play. That's catch up. Windows 8 was the catch up OS, and then they realized that they went a bit too far with the touch stuff, so they sort of dialed it back a bit with Windows 10. But Windows 10 is still based on that Windows 8 idea of let's bring Windows into the modern era where we have an app store and things are a lot more easy for the consumer. And it's Microsoft twiddling its thumbs around for the last 5 years before Windows 8.
That gets back to the mobile strategy. Yeah. And the whole idea that back in 2006 and 2007, there was a group of dedicated Microsofties working on Windows Mobile and Windows Phone stuff. And they were like, we're working on this great stuff. And the company's like, awesome, Windows is important, not that. And gave them no money, no support. And then once mobile got big, they were just like completely caught off guard and everything. Ballmer now admits, right, back when the iPhone was super expensive, he didn't take into account the carrier subsidies playing such a big role in that. They didn't take into account the App Store stuff. Like they made a lot of mistakes that they're now fessing up to. But yeah, everything you see now today is a catch up for that.
Guess what Jason just announced in our live chat? There's a new build coming in a minute.
Oh, that's why you're slapping your face?
Yes, that's why I'm... Thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. Right, so if you're listening to this on Monday, a second build came out this week for Insider Fast. I don't know if it's for PC or mobile, though. They haven't announced that yet. But their new build's coming. Would you mind...
Hopefully it fixes it. Yeah.
Are we done with this topic?
Yes, I think we're done.
We could actually read out a changelog right now as it went live if Jason hits the push button now. Do you want to tackle the Xbox one whilst I sort this out?
I'll try to, because I only followed part of this. But yes, so this week, Gamescom Germany, our own Jez Corden and Matt Brown were there covering it. If you don't know, the big news, of course, was Xbox One X got featured. They showed some video of it and demo of some of the games. There's been some deeper dives into what the new 4K style games are going to look like. And of course, the big deal was you can now pre-order, which I always find pre-orders kind of funny because it doesn't get you the device any faster. Although I guess in theory, you're getting in line earlier, which means you can ship it out. But actually, in this case, there was a reason to be following the story. As leaked out on, I believe, Friday, there is a Xbox One X special edition. That's the Project Scorpio version. It is limited edition. It's got a slightly different color tone to it. It's like grayish, but it also has in green, the Xbox screen says Project Scorpio on it, and it comes with a special controller. I actually still have downstairs my day one 2013 controller. I think that's, or is it 2012 for the original Xbox One. So that's what this is kind of. If you remember when the Xbox One came out, they had a day one edition, which I forgot what the features of that were, but the controller has a little stamp on it. So that's what this has. Other than that, though, you're not getting any other special hardware. So as Zach has lamented a few times, I kind of agree here. You're only getting a 1 terabyte hard drive. Would have been nice to have a 2 terabyte option. I'm not sure why they didn't. Like, I feel like at $499, I guess that price is, it's kind of high, but I feel like they could have gone like $579 and been like, here's an extra terabyte of hard drive space or something like that. Maybe some other bonus features, but that version of the One X is very limited. It went on sale for pre-orders, I should say, on GameStop, I believe Best Buy, Amazon, and of course the Microsoft Store, plus various other locations worldwide. And pretty much within 24 hours, it was all gone. Now, it's still worth checking out every once in a while. I believe just yesterday, Amazon did. I love how this stuff happens. They find more stock and they put it on for a few more hours, and people are able to get those. But I think actually what that has to do, I'm really curious. Like, do they really only have like, say, 20,000 of these or 10,000? Or is it like roundabout number, and they see how sales are and they kind of bump it? Because they don't tell you, right? These aren't like the individual, like limited 10,000, they're stamped with a number. Like that, is a fixed, right?
Mm-hmm.
This, I feel like they didn't tell us the number, so they could just be kind of like, oh, they're selling more.
They just make more whenever they need to.
Yeah, right. But I also think that some of this is redistribution of supply and demand. So they go like, okay, here, Brazil, or here in, UK, you get like this amount. And then they start to push some of that around, which is why some of them get freed up. I did get an order in, so I'm pretty excited about that. They also announced the Minecraft edition of the 1S, which honestly I think looks way cooler. Like, I don't even like Minecraft that much, but man, that Minecraft edition was awesome looking. Like, I don't know.
It's got like redstone on the underside of it, which apparently lights up when it's on. And it's not on the underside, which is odd. I guess it's for those who stand their console vertically.
Right.
But yeah, it looks really, really nice. I mean, I pre-ordered the Scorpio edition. I was upset at the fact that there's not a 2 terabyte version. People were telling me, "Oh, it's fine. You don't play that many games." Excuse me. Just because I don't play that many games doesn't mean I don't want them installed for my convenience. It's like I don't see why they had a 1S 2 terabyte launch version and not a Scorpio. It would make sense for the Scorpio to have even a 3 terabyte internal hard drive, because it's going to be, the games on 1X are going to be bigger anyway because they've got the 4K assets. It's just sometimes Microsoft
it's still. I'd say it's still frustrating that, and I get this. So it's still a physical hard drive, not SSD, and I totally get that. Although a 1 terabyte SSD that's like pretty performant, I think would cost at least $200-$300. Like, and a 2 terabyte one is like really expensive. Like, that's probably at least $600. I forgot the prices on these, but they're, your terabyte SSDs like that are like the M2 things that you find on laptops are super expensive. And the reason why you can buy a console for $300, or in this case $500, is because they use hard drives, which are just, but as someone who uses SSDs and laptops, I can tell you, putting an SSD, like, I feel like they could make a Scorpio with SSDs and just sell it for like $800 and be like, all right, this is they could just call it like Xbox One X Ultimate Edition or something like that. And I'm sure people would buy it because the loading times for games would probably be about at least, I would say at least half of what they are. So that is still a bottleneck, but that's the, that's Xbox console versus PCs.
Yeah, Microsoft did announce today actually that their pre-orders are exceeding expectations, which I guess is good. And that's the...
Well, more than that, right? They said this is the fastest pre-sale for any Xbox.
Right, which again, I mean, that might be great, but then at the same time, maybe it's not. We don't. They haven't given any... No numbers means nothing. It's like...
Well, comparative, I mean, it's outselling 1S and apparently the original one.
Right, that's true. I mean, perhaps this might be a turning point for Xbox One, and only the future
good.
knows.
No matter which way you cut that, that's a good sign.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Especially since this isn't like a generational shift. It's more, for people with 4K TVs.
Yeah, and Microsoft also announced today as well that they will be opening up pre-orders for the standard Xbox One X next month. So if you missed out on the Scorpio edition, or you just didn't want the Scorpio edition, you will be able to pre-order the normal one next month, which I assume will also come with a 1 terabyte hard drive.
People are pointing out that can you just use an external SSD? Yes, I did reviews of 2 of them. But don't forget, there's still a bottleneck there. You're talking to USB 3.0 port. 3.0 is nice. Type C or an actual M2 SATA or a PCIe slot is going to be much faster. So now the bottleneck is going between that connector and the Xbox. It is faster than a hard disk drive. You're still not optimizing that actual speed though for full. So having a built-in SSD would still be faster. There are ways that are very technical for hacking out the hard drive and putting in like a proper SSD, but this isn't like flashing Windows, the actual OS, and getting it onto the SSD, and the security involved there is very difficult. I don't know, but yeah.
So Microsoft just released 2 new builds in the Insider program. Build 16275 for PC for insiders in the fast ring non-skip ahead. So if you're still testing Red Zone 3, you're getting 16275 now in the fast ring. There's no build for the skip ahead users, which is funny, but that will likely be next week. There's also a build for mobile, build 15245, and as expected, that's some feature 2 and includes no new features. In fact, the PC build includes no new features either. These are just literally fixes builds, so they just include fixes and under the hood changes and stuff, which is nice. So yeah, as we said at the beginning of the podcast, they are now working on just finalizing the PC release. I have no idea what's going on for mobile. Microsoft have not clarified whether they're going to be releasing another mobile update this year to the public. I don't see why they need to. I mean, it's not like there's many people out there anymore who need these updates, and mobile doesn't need to be on the same release cycle as PC anymore, but we'll see what they do for that. But yeah, 2 new builds now available for insiders.
Well, that's always nice, although a little bit frustrating if you have multiple computers that need to be updated, which I guess I'll do after this podcast. Always good stuff, though. But
they look like minor fixes, so I wouldn't even be. It's not even that.
Fixes are always good, as long as it's more stable. So pretty good stuff on the Xbox front, though, for gaming. They'll give us more information on pre-orders and release dates, I believe, in the coming weeks. So very good stuff. Where is there other Xbox news? I forgot.
I don't believe so. Gamescom happened and some stuff happened there. Microsoft announced over 100 4K or Xbox One X ready games. That doesn't mean there'll be 4K. Xbox One X ready simply means that there will be some improvements to the game that are specific to Xbox One X. That can include faster frame rates, more textures in the game. Some developers may aim for 1080p with more textures at 60 frames. Some might aim for 4K with slightly lower textures and 30 FPS, for example. So it depends on the game. We know like the games like Ghost Recon Wildlands will be getting an Xbox One X version. Recore Definitive Edition, will be getting a One X edition as well. And all of these are free. Microsoft says that all 100 plus games will be getting free updates. That you don't have to pay for these.
All of Microsoft's own titles. So, of course, Minecraft, Gears of War 4, Forza Horizons 3, Motorsport 7, of course. I'd assume Motorsport 6. I'm actually very excited about Gears of War 4 at 4K. That's going to be intense because that's already an HDR title too. So, very much looking forward to being able to play that, as well as Forza Horizons 3, which is such a fun game. I don't know. It's good stuff. It'll be... I'm just glad it's selling well, right? This actually, let me do a side rant. Goes back to our original discussion about the stupid games industry, and I'm not a fan of a lot of the gaming sites. I get they do their thing, whatever, but I feel like sometimes they outstep what they know. So they were you can just search. There are a lot of articles written talking about how Microsoft cannot sell a console over $399. The market won't stand it, and it won't do well. And it would just have to be like so much better than PlayStation 4 Pro that they just can't do it. And everybody was saying this. You can't price a console over that. And Microsoft came out and like, we're doing it $499. And here they are to go, that turns out it's the best-selling Xbox we've ever had so far. I don't know. That, like I said, this stuff is like people who say you can't do things. Like I wrote that article about smartphones. Smartphones, a new, the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, I believe it comes on just under $1,000 for the US. People a year ago were saying you can't do $1,000 smartphone, and it's like, well, guess what? People were entering in the era of $1,000 smartphones. That doesn't mean you can't sell $200 smartphone. There are plenty of those on the market. In fact, as I was getting my haircut yesterday, I was telling my barber, I was like, she was looking for a new phone. I'm like, get the new OnePlus 5, $499, best phone you'll get. So there are plenty of options out there, but we're definitely entering into an age of sort of premium devices. And I think that's cool because they shouldn't. This is what happens when a market moves beyond niche. So gaming console, still kind of niche. It makes millions of billions of dollars, but still, a niche market. Smartphone, same thing, and it's moved beyond that. So this is what happens. So it's all good stuff. I'm kind of excited to hear about that from Microsoft.
Everything's expensive. Get over it.
Yeah, or it's not, right? You can
it's not. There's plenty, and as I've pointed out many times, lots of cheap laptops and phones out there, which and Xboxes. I mean, the Xbox One S, or the standard Xbox One, the original Xbox One is, you can get that for $100-$200, I'd assume now.
Which is insane. You know why?
Yeah.
Because I'm still like toying with the idea. Every once in a while, I'll see some talk about the new Nintendo Switch. Like, let me look into this. First of all, $299. I'm like, $300. My God, I could buy, as you just pointed out, an Xbox console for cheaper than that. Or for, so that's kind of weird. Also, you can't just walk into Best Buy and buy one right now because Nintendo still doesn't know how to actually make devices 5 months on after its release. It's like, I don't know, it's very infuriating. Imagine if Microsoft was like that with the Xbox.
We made a new Xbox, but we can't get it to you because we haven't got enough.
Yeah, like imagine if like the stuff that went on pre-order, that was like they cut it off and they're like, that's all we're doing right now. We're not expecting any more Xboxes until like April.
Outrage.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, that's not acceptable, right? I mean, are you...
Yeah, but I think Nintendo realizes is that the majority of their fans and the reason they're still making money is because lots of people have nostalgia. And that's pretty much it. That's it. Their entire business plan is, we can pull on nostalgia.
Remember, we used to be great?
Exactly.
Here, play Mario again.
Yeah, I hate Nintendo. I hate their consoles and everything.
But, yeah. So
speaking of things we don't hate, Razer Blade.
Right. So actually, the funny thing about the Razer Blade Stealth was when this was announced in January 2016, it made a lot of waves. People were like, oh my God, it's so awesome looking. And I remember the reviews came out for it and people really, really liked it. The build quality, it's very thin, it's under 3 pounds. And it basically looks like, a black Macintosh, MacBook Pro, kind of MacBook-ish thing. And I was just like, I kept reading the reviews and people were loving it. I'm like, I have obviously a laptop. I have a laptop problem. In fact, if you stole a laptop from me, it would probably take me days before I noticed it. And this was like the one I was actually using. So I was like, all right, let me go check this thing out. So I went to the Microsoft store and I was pretty like, okay, I'm going to buy this thing and I'll take it home and I'll review it and stuff like that. I walked in, I saw the Stealth. And I was like, yeah, I couldn't deal with those thick bezels. And it was a 12.5-inch display at 4K, which to me is just weird. The size of the display, too small. The resolution, too high. It was just wrong. Why do you need 4K at 12.5 inches? I don't know. It was just bizarre. And then it was just glossy and it was fingerprinted. Then the trackpad, I was just not impressed with. I was just and I didn't buy it. And that's weird for me because I almost always go in and oh, okay, give me one, And this time I didn't. I walked out and twice it happened. I was just like, no, I'm not, no. Then, and it was late May, June, Razer contacted me, gave me a briefing. They're like, we're updating the Blade Stealth. I'm like, all right, let's see what you guys got. And they took me through all the major features and the improvements. And I was just like, and this is one reason why I like Razer, because they do make mistakes. Sometimes they don't get things right, but they're very in tune with their audience and how to fix things. And when they rattled off all the new features, it's like, oh, you guys get it. All right. So what they did was they replaced the 12.5. Now, so they actually still have the 12.5 4K version if you want it. I do not recommend it. What they did was they just put in a larger 13.3-inch panel into this. That's all they did, which is kind of why didn't they do that in the first place? I don't know. But it knocked it down from 4K to QHD+, which is totally fine at that size, right? That's still, and it's basically the same display as the XPS 13. By putting in a larger display, they magically shrunk down the bezels by 50%. Now, these bezels aren't super thin. They just look like normal laptop bezels. But it looks really sharp. It makes the device look balanced and it's really nice looking. They also finally, replaced the trackpad and made it precision. And it's a beautiful trackpad. They also now offer it in gunmetal gray for people who, it turns out people were buying Razers who weren't really into gaming. They just wanted a really nice laptop. And a lot of these people work in offices and you're like, I don't like the stupid green snake glowing while I'm in a meeting, which is kind of funny too. I imagine a 35-year-old business guy in a meeting, white shirt, tie, and he's got snakes on his laptop. I'm just yeah, sorry. And the rainbow keyboard glowing. So they released a gunmetal gray option, which now the snake is still there, but it's very light and it's black and doesn't glow, right? There's also the keyboard doesn't have rainbow colors. The RGB chroma is just white and it doesn't have green USB plugs. They're just black, I think. So it's a very conservative toned down version, but it looks great. And so anyway, I got to finally review this device, and it's really, really nice. It's got Kaby Lake in there now. It doesn't now. What's weird is Razer's known for gaming, and this isn't actually a gaming laptop. It's technically just a straight up Ultrabook. So it's got a dual core processor, nothing special, 7500U. It's a good processor. Surface Laptop's i7 is technically faster, which is kind of interesting. There's no discrete graphics, so no NVIDIA in there. You can't do that in a laptop this thin, at least not yet. That weighs this less. So it just has standard Intel HD 620 graphics. It's got a really nice SSD in there. The keyboard is really nice, although as I point out, it's kind of shallow, but you get used to it. So what you're getting is a really nicely built laptop. It's solid. It's just it's all metal. There's no creaking, there's no soft spots. It's just like this beautiful piece of metal. You can open it one-handed. They use all the right components. They use Killer Wireless, which some people don't like. I actually like Killer. I think they make good stuff. So it's a really nice laptop. Now, the downside, of course, is it's a straight-up laptop. I'm actually fine, and I know you're fine with straight-up laptops. It is a touch display, too, so that's nice. You can't use a pen, though. But I think in 2017, a strong argument can be made that, I got right here, right next to me as well, the HP Spectre X360 at 4K, which is you can spec it out and get it for about $80 less and still get a slightly faster processor with Iris Plus graphics. So you'll get a slight performance bump in there. And it can still connect up to an eGPU. And that takes a pen. I don't know. I'm not saying that's better. I'm just saying that's worth consideration. So if you want a straight-up laptop, I definitely recommend the Stealth. The battery life's okay on it, 6 to 7 hours. It's not the strongest out there, although the Spectre with 4K is probably around that as well. But it's a good laptop. And I also talked about the eGPU, the Razer Core, which I just happen to have with a 1080 Ti. And it's really awesome. With this one Type-C cable, this is why people want Thunderbolt 3, by the way. You plug this one cable in, charges the laptop, handles display, handles Ethernet, can handle multiple displays, and up to 4 USB ports. That's pretty cool. And so if you're looking for a setup where you just have a really good display at home, your eGPU, and you could just have the Razer Stealth and just this one plug. It's super minimalist plug-in, and you have one computer for all the time.
So I know Razer have slowly moved on to not using precision in some of their products. Is this one of those laptops?
No. They're moving towards precision.
Sorry, that's what I meant. They've moved towards precision. Is this one of those that has precision? Or
yes.
Is this... Okay, so this is the precision one. Okay, that's good. Because as we all know, I hate Synaptics and other touchpads.
Yeah, Razer Blade Pro went to precision. Razer Blade Stealth has now gone to precision. The only one that's not is the current 14-inch Razer Blade. Or is it? But I guess that's a good segue. But yeah, so go read my review. There's also a video review too for the Razer Blade Stealth. Really cool device. I really like Razer stuff. I just think they make quality hardware that's fun to use. Definitely worth checking out. I believe the Microsoft Store should be getting them to Best Buy. Best Buy is starting to carry Razer stuff directly now, not just the accessories, but the laptop. So you should be able to go check it out yourself before. I always recommend, if you can, buy a laptop from a store, a physical one. I know it's weird. Or buy from Microsoft or something like that. Someplace you have a good return policy in case you're not happy with it. I think it's just a better deal. But Razer does sell you stuff direct through their website too, which helps them save money. But yeah, so getting on to... and getting away from Synaptics and Elan. So for those who don't know, in trackpads, there are actually 4 ways of doing them. There's Microsoft Precision, there's Synaptics, there's Elan, and then there's it's a trackpad but uses mouse drivers, which you find in the really low cost stuff. That's like $300. So it looks like a trackpad, but it looks like a mouse into the system. And so you get gestures and stuff like that, but you don't get the same controls and it's not as good. That's how you save. Synaptics and Elan, if I had to rank them, Synaptics is actually better than Elan. I really do not like Elan at all, but MSI likes Elan. And HP has a weird relationship where they put Microsoft Precision in their Elite book, in the Elite series, and actually lets you switch to, I forgot actually, what's the name of the other? Oh, Alps. Alps is the other one too. But But then in their Spectre line, which is the premium consumer versions, they use Synaptics. And I every time I meet with them, it's so funny. I'm like, you guys still using Synaptics? They're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, fix that. They know it's a running joke between us now. It's really funny. But yeah, and then Razer Blade 14-inch, of course, still uses Synaptics as well. Zach and I don't like it. It's just...
It's not precision. Precision's just better in every way, shape, and form. Simple as.
Yeah, and so the history of precision is simply that Microsoft knew that Windows laptops had bad trackpads, right? That was always the complaint. You can go back 3 years ago and read reviews of laptops, and they would always say, well, compared to an Apple, it's terrible. And it really grinded on a lot of companies. They were just like, and the problem was every company did their own trackpad, and they were all different. So sometimes you'd actually get when I was kind of good, and reviewers always had to do that. Like, the trackpad was kind of nice, but this and that. Microsoft said, screw this. We're going to designate our own driver. It's called Microsoft Precision. There are some hardware requirements too. Basically, it needs to be, like, I believe, a glass type trackpad. It has to support multi-touch gestures and stuff like that. Those are kind of standard now. So you can actually have a physical trackpad manufactured by Synaptics that uses precision drivers. That's a possible thing because Microsoft doesn't actually make the trackpad. They make the trackpad drivers and require certain hardware for it to work. And so that's what happened. Now, Microsoft says companies could just use these. If they want them, they can use them. I don't know if there's licensing costs there. And we've seen companies, Dell uses in their XPS line precision touchpads and drivers. And we've been seeing companies going down the path of adopting it. Razer, as I pointed out, put it into their Pro. They put it into the Stealth. I guarantee they'll probably put it into the Blade 14. And so we're seeing, and Zach has reported that there's going to come a time, right, where Microsoft is basically going to put their foot down and say, you have to use these drivers. Is that the case?
They've toyed around with the idea. They have, I think they've even publicly said that it is something they will look into in the future, which is reassuring for precision lovers.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, someone asked, why don't they have precision trackpad for Alienware? Ask Alienware. It's not like... In fact, I'm going to tell you how you can do it for Alienware. But there's nothing, the hardware supports it. Dell said one of the reasons I think this is an interesting debate, and one reason I think companies use Synaptics or ELAN is those companies have very robust configuration panels that you can go into. And like Lenovo was like this too. And there's like 9,000 settings. So you can make an argument that like, it's not nearly as good, but then you can go in and configure like XY axes and sensitivity and do these weird zone things and all these weird, proprietary type features. And gamers and people spending this money on these kind of laptops like that kind of stuff. Precision doesn't do that. Precision's like, although there are more gestures now, Windows 10 Creators Update and then the Fall Creators Update, it's still not as minutia in terms of settings. But all this discussion of this is important. But the reason why we're talking about it is you can actually install precision drivers on your laptop, and
what it does is it transforms your device into something that's horrible with a trackpad to something that's amazing with a trackpad.
That's one way of putting it, yes. So we'll have a tutorial going up on this, including with a full video and there's a caveat there for Razer Blade owners that we found out, which is funny because...
It's probably good to say that might extend to other devices. We've only tested it on two. We've tested it on the Spectre X360 2016 model, which had a horrible Synaptics trackpad, and we've tested it on the Razer Blade 14. And it does work on both cases, except Dan, as he's about to explain, the Razer has a slightly different thing.
Yeah, so the Razer, when you do this process, it's kind of funny. You install the new driver, and then your cursor will like disappear, and you won't have any trackpad support. And so you might freak out at that stage. You'll be like, "Oh God, I just broke my laptop." Which no, I mean you can always roll back these drivers. It's just a driver, obviously. You're not doing like a firmware thing. But the deal is, restart the computer, let the driver kick in. It'll still won't work when you log in. But so you'll need either an external mouse, or if you're comfortable just using the keyboard for navigation, which is totally possible, navigate back to the device manager and then have it check Windows Update through the device manager. I give all the instructions on how to do this. Have it check for updates online, it'll pull a newer driver down, and all of a sudden your mouse cursor will pop up and you'll have it. So yeah, I am running now Precision drivers on my Razer Blade 14. If you read my review for the Razer Blade 14, you'll see the one thing I say is like it doesn't have precision. It annoys me. So we went the Spectre X360 and the Spectre X2, I believe that's the name of it. That's their Surface clone. They don't use precision, but now I have precision here. And for the most part, it works well. Like I haven't noticed any quirks or weird things. It just, you get all the gestures. When you go into Windows 10 settings, it goes, you have a precision touchpad. Here are your settings. It's just normal.
It's the future. That's what it is. It's the future. And as we said on my Spectre, when I did it, it required a reboot, but the mouse never stopped working at any point. The trackpad continued to work. In fact, it was funny because when I was installing the driver, I was sort of just moving the mouse around on the screen with the Synaptics drivers on still. And sort of just before the installer finished, I could feel a difference in the behavior straight away. I was like, oh, that's moving way better now. I have much more precision on the trackpad. And then a restart, and I went into settings, and as all the precision controls are there, and it's basically like an entirely new device now. Honest to God, I mean, that's how I feel about precision over Synaptics and other devices. Other people might not notice it. I know this is a very particular thing for some people, but for me, it changes the game when it comes to devices. Like I will mark down a laptop for not using precision. That's how serious and important it is to me. Because I feel like Synaptics and Elan and all the other times, they just take away from a good experience. As you mentioned with the MacBook stuff, like the MacBook trackpads are amazing. That they do what, you don't have to hear anyone complaining about them because they're
consistent too. Right. They're always going to be the same. And with precision, it's funny because when you read my reviews and I say it's got a precision touchpad, like I almost have less to say. I'm like, it's precision, it just works and it feels awesome. Like I can get to the physical nature of it a little bit, like their click isn't as good or maybe a loose kind of thing, but for the most part, it's they're just going to be very similar.
And I feel it's important as well because for most people, the trackpad is the primary input method for using your device. Right. That's what you're manipulating when you use your device. Therefore, that's what you're experiencing first and foremost. If the trackpad experience is bad, then your overall experience of your device is going to be bad as well. And that's just simply how it goes.
And I would also say some of this is relative, right? So even if you're using Synaptics, like I point out, like HP Synaptics, like it's actually a pretty good Synaptics, like and you get used to it, and part of like reason why Zach and I are so against it is because like we'll have like a Surface laptop next to it, and like Surface obviously uses precision and they're easily the best trackpads around. And when you use those and then you jump to this, an HP device or like the Razer Blade, it's kind of night and day. You're just like, oh God, why does it feel so sluggish and just not as good, And so when you get that, now most people don't have that experience. So to them, they're going like, why are you guys going on about this? It's not a big deal. But when you start using it, it is. And it's just it's more precise. It's just more accurate. It's smoother. Of course, now Synaptics does the gestures. You can do 4-finger tap in a Synaptics and still get the Action Center pop out. But I would say with precision, it works a little bit better. Sometimes there's not as much lag and stuff like that. So we'll have that tutorial. And I go into a lot of detail, so don't worry. There's a lot of screenshots and a lot of arrow pointing, so you'll know what to do. It's not hard. This whole thing will take you less than 5 minutes. If you screw it up, and like if you screw it up, there's two things. Either you just didn't follow my directions, which is what Mark did. That was the funny thing we had at Mark. I told Mark, I was like, before you do this, Mark, you'll want to get a mouse because your trackpad, it'll stop working. You'll have to update the driver, and I gave him the instructions. And it was like, he tried it like a day later. He's like, well, I just broke my touchpad. It doesn't work. I'm like, damn it, Mark, I just told you. He's like, oh, yeah, you're right. So make sure you follow the instructions. They're kind of idiot-proof. Some of the power users are going to be like, that's too much detail, but it's fine. And Mark will have a video, too, with it that'll walk you through the process. It's super simple. If it doesn't work or you don't like it because you're just a masochist, you can roll back the driver or install your regular one again. So there's no permanent damage here. But people in the Reddit thread where this originally came from were saying their laptops from like 2013 and 14 were able to do this too. And it works, it seems like, on Synaptics and Elan. So I have an MSI GS63 VR Stealth Pro laying around.
Nice name.
With a Elan driver, which I'll probably try. And before the post goes live, I'll double check. That's a terrible laptop, by the way. Actually, a little side story. Rich Edmonds is reviewing it because I've had a device for about a year now, and I just can't review it. It's just so bad. But I'm going to help him kind of review it. It's got a really nice display though. It's kind of it's a cool laptop in theory. I just don't like how this is why, by the way, people give Razer a lot of crap. Oh, it's too expensive and all that. But like, I'm telling you, when I try Razer laptops, they're just like, yeah, this is nice. This is like, it's like Surface, but for gaming. And I find it comes like MSI are just still like in that era of just like, ugh. Even Alienware stuff has gotten very good, but this would point out, they still don't use precision touchpads on a lot of their devices, which is just like, why? They're getting so much right. But we'll have that guide up shortly, so make sure you pay attention to that, bookmark it, share it, we'll appreciate it, and definitely if you have a laptop without, and I even tell you how to check if you have a preset to see if you have Elan or Synaptics before, but let me know what you think of it, and join the cult of precision.
And keep in mind that we have no responsibility if you mess up your device.
Yeah, if the device blows up, that's not my fault.
Yeah, it's not our fault.
Yeah. Hey, it beats the days, 10 years ago, if you remember, all Windows sites, all they were like registry hacking. And like, I haven't read registry hacking.
We're not responsible if you mess up your device in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad I haven't had to write a registry hacking article in a while. So cool. Well, that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good timing, I think.
Oh, sounds like I'm getting interference now. Probably Windows updating.
Can you not hear me?
Net's breaking down.
Oh, okay.
Let me close the screen.
End the show because we can hear you fine.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good at least. Well, let's wrap it up. That is this week's podcast. We're going to stick around and do some questions and answers as long as I can hear Zach. Remember, this podcast is recorded live Fridays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can join us on mixer.com/Windows Central, where you can join in the chat and watch us live. Otherwise, you can get it on our stream and download for any time later. Join us on Thursdays for Microsoft Gaming Libations, where me, Jez, and Zach play some video games, give away codes. Hopefully, Jez will be back this week. He was at Gamescom, so couldn't join us, and we'll be doing that. Zach, actually, we won't be doing a podcast next week, if I'm correct, right? Because you'll be on vacay.
I will be on vacation, yes. I am finally having a break. I am excited.
You gotta say on holiday.
I'm going on holiday, yeah. Bye.
On holiday. Yeah. So unfortunately, don't join us next week for another podcast, but we'll be back the week after in September for a brand new one. Thanks for joining in and listening to us, and we'll take questions now. Take care, everybody.